Orleans, raised in Albany, Georgia. Came here 25 years ago because I'm a salesperson. That's what originally I did. And so finished my degree in computer science.
Okay.
That's funny, I couldn't think of that. But computer
Wow.
science, I'm a programmer. So I worked as a programmer for about 4 years. Decided that really wasn't my thing. And then my life story really got me into this field, which is God saved my marriage. So once that happened, I really became passionate about counseling.
Wow. And I guess why counseling? What made was it? Did you have to? Were you going to counseling and you're like, man, they really are impacting lives? Or
Well, it was kind of like that. So I had several kind of aspects. So one was the marriage thing. I was having trouble with marriage. Then I was having some family stuff because something was going on with one of my children, and from a mom's perspective, it was devastating. So yes, I went to counseling, got some help. Um, but the real journey started with when I saw the impact on marriage. I was like, oh, we could help a lot of people with marriage. So that's kind of, and then I kind of got into all the other stuff. So the mental health stuff and all that came as after I got into the industry. So there's some great research. I'm a professor too. I teach at Belhaven University. So there's a lot of great research out there that says our brains can be restored. And so a lot of people don't even know that. So just like we take care of our heart or we take care of ourselves if we have cancer, we have to take care of our mental health. And there's a lot of stuff we can do. And a lot of it's really simple stuff. And all of it doesn't include medicine. So I like to include, although I'm not anti-medicine, sometimes we need it, but there's so much we could do to take care of ourselves and to feel better mentally and to be able to thrive and become our best selves. So I'm very passionate about helping people learn to do that.
and
Well, you got your mind and you got your brain and you got your thoughts. They're all woven together basically. And so if you think about it, if your brain is unhealthy, if your brain is injured, like if I illustrate to kids, I'll bring a crutch into a room and I'll illustrate that if I had a crutch, how would you help me? They'd hold the door, they'd help me. They could see because I got a crutch, right? But we don't have a crutch when something's going on with our brain because you can't see that. You can't tell what's going on inside of us. But just like if I broke my leg, I need some help. If my brain is injured, I need help as well. So I try to help people understand that. And there's so much just cognitive therapy, which is the therapy of dealing with thoughts. And so help people think differently, think more positively, help people turn things around, help people deal with feelings. I deal with that most of the time. And so many people don't understand that processing your feelings, and I'm one of those people, I did not understand it at first. But processing your feelings will free you up. With just being able to talk about how you feel, what's going on, why it's going on, why do you feel that way, be able to recognize it. Be able to recognize that some of it's your stuff from childhood. What happened to you in your family of origin? What happened to you? Did you go through some trauma? So based on that trauma, maybe why you react to things the way you react to them. And if we don't know that, we can't react to it. I mean, we can't fix it if we don't know it. So, a lot of this stuff, I talked about opioids the other day at church, and it was an amazing thing to kind of come in with a lot of other providers and have a presentation about the youth and the opioid crisis. And what we wound up talking about a lot is hereditary. There's a lot of stuff in our families. A lot of the addictions come through families. And so we talk about as a family systems therapist, that's one of the things I talk about. What's in your family line? What kind of things happened in your home? What did you observe? What messages were you given? And how do you give yourself new messages? And so we don't really, so I really try to help people understand that. And I think a lot of times in our community and in our church, we don't understand it. We don't talk about it. We talk about the spiritual aspects of it, but we don't talk about the mental aspects of it. We don't talk about even how the physical health can affect our mental health too, because exercising and eating right can help you think better. And most people don't think about that. So one of the things I try to do is I try to teach things like resilience. So resilience is the explanation to how you bounce back. So some people who are thriving, who've had all these horrible things happen to them, but they're thriving and they're doing great. I try to remind them that's because you're resilient, and then they go, "Oh, well, thank you," because I didn't really know that. So I do a lot of teaching. And so, but I teach people how to, when you process your feelings, like it's okay to feel that way because that happened to you and that's real and it bothered you and it bothers you when people treat you that way or people do something or say something. That's okay. Acknowledge it. But then do you have to act like they act? Do you have to treat people the way they treat you? Or do you treat people the way you're supposed to treat people? And it's a fine line, but it really is so cool when we do the right thing. We become more whole and more we just become better by doing the right thing. And so I do a lot of teaching about stuff like that. So journaling, maybe journaling what happened in your past, like writing down um, the thing that happened to you, so the traumatic event. And then how did that make you feel? What was going on with the traumatic event? You know, were you sad? Why were you sad? What was going on with that specifically? So drilling down. So who was involved with that? Maybe we need to write that person a letter. Are they still here? Or have they died? If they've died, you might write a letter even though they're not here anymore. Or it may be a person you can't communicate with, so you might write a letter that you can't send. And so you get those feelings out. You tell them how you feel. You tell them how it made you feel, what they did to you. And so processing that, processing how it's impacting your life. Because a lot of things, like you said, impacted us. So just sitting down and thinking about how did that impact me? When that happened to me, all these other things happened, and what's been the impact of that? So the diagnosis for that might be post-traumatic stress disorder, and sometimes we have vicarious stress or vicarious trauma. So although you weren't the victim of the trauma, you as a result of the trauma, you've experienced trauma. So we treat it pretty much the same way. We teach people again to deal with the feelings, to deal with how to process. Like with kids, we actually have a play therapist or a therapeutic play on board where we draw and we write and we play and we model and we draw like who was in the family, and we talk about that and what are they doing in the picture, and so those kind of things. But we do all that to help process those things that happen, why they happen. Then the favorite thing we do is we give coping skills. So we teach how to relax, how to breathe, how to get enough sleep. How to do things that'll really help you. What can you do? So some people come in and say, I'm angry. You know, I'm dealing with anger. I'm angry all the time. So what can we do to help you relax and process your anger so that you don't stay angry? And so some tools that you can use so you can do some alternative things. So you might feel like punching people, but you can't walk around punching people. So we got to give you some alternatives to that. And so people love that. They pick up on the alternatives and they kind of run with them. So that's one of my real passions, is getting into our community and helping people understand, breaking down those barriers and breaking down those stigmas. So I'll do things like go into the church and do a presentation so that the whole church can see me and they see we're less threatening. Every time I go do a presentation, they're like, people come in for therapy because they're like, oh, you're approachable. But if you don't know that, so that's the one thing we want to do. The other thing is information. Information is powerful. You know, teaching, I'm writing a curriculum right now that's going to go into the school systems. I could use it for a lot of different settings, maybe in different jobs, but to help people deal with their emotional and social health. So I'll go in and I'll take that anywhere and help people. Right now I'm doing it with my Sunday school class, and the kids they're loving it because we're talking about their mental health, and they're like, man, you're giving us tools that we didn't know we needed. And so but I break down barriers by talking about it, by educating, by making myself present, by just going into the community, being known. The more I think they see our face, thank you for doing the story, you know, by doing stories.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm on Facebook, I'm everywhere. But I do that because I want people to know what's available. My tagline is hope, help, and healing is available. And it is. And not just here, but it's available all over the city. So I point people that if you don't want to do it with me, there are other people. I'll connect you with somebody else who's doing something similar.
And having a African American male is gonna target a population that might not really believe in this. Like that is amazing.
So yeah, Jay's awesome, and we're glad he got to work with us. He came to me 2.5 years before we moved over here, wanted to work with me, so we had to expand in order to accommodate him. And so of course we have 4 other people that came along with him. But it was definitely a need, and he wanted to work in the community. He was working in Dalton. He wanted to work in our community, so he came on board, and he's having a great impact. So we're excited. He's working. I do a lot of couples work. I have a co-counselor that does couples work with me. He does the guys by themselves, and then he also does the young people. So if I've got teenagers or young people who need some help, Jay just jumps right in, and he does a great job. So it's definitely an asset to our team. Absolutely. So initially I work with women, adolescents, families, marital, and premarital. And then we expanded. So now we have somebody who works from, 4 to 18, somebody who works from 8 to 30, both female. Then I have another young lady who does from 6 to 60. Of course, Jay does from 10 to adult males. So now we cover the entire family. So we do family therapy. That's why I have the big couch. So I have a couch where the whole family can sit in. Sometimes we come out 10 or 12 strong, because whoever needs to come in, we want to help with. We serve a very diverse community. We serve TennCare and people who can't pay, but we also serve private pay. We serve self-pay. So some people just come in and say, look, I don't want to do insurance. I just want to pay you. So we do the whole gamut. And we'll go out and do workshops. We've done free workshops, but sometimes people pay us for workshops. So we do that too. We'll speak all over the world. Wherever anybody who wants us to come, we'll come and do that as well. But it's my passion to get the emotional and social health information out to the community because it's needed. Well, it's so funny. My husband and I have this conversation pretty often. He can remember me talking about it way before it became popular. And he says now everybody's talking about mental health, but he can remember a time when that wasn't the way. And so I don't know if we were just on the front end of that, but I knew it was needed. Like I can tell way before, like now a lot of things are a crisis. Suicide is a crisis, the opioid crisis. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But before that, I knew we needed mental health. And for me, there was something available that we didn't know about. It would be like knowing there's a good surgeon in town and I've got this disease and I need the surgeon, but nobody told me about him. And so that's kind of how I see what we do. So I believe that everybody needs somebody to listen and understand them, to hear their heart. I really see myself as somebody who hears, and most counselors do this, we hear the heart. And so to be understood and to be able to understand is one of the key things that everybody needs. So if you feel misunderstood, or if you feel like people don't get you, or if you feel like, I know I need some help, but I can't trust people. So I'll speak to the trust thing. We're a state licensed facility, so we have to keep your trust. Now, of course, as a personal person who's been to counseling, I wanted that person to keep my trust. So everything you say is confidential. There's nothing, we can't tell anybody about what you talked to us about. So what you say will be kept confident. So you can know that for sure from any counselor because we're all sworn to that. And if we don't, we lose our license. And so I don't like to lose that little piece of paper on the wall. So, of course, we keep that. We keep everything confidential. I think that's the biggest scare. The other one, how are you going to help me? I have people ask that. How are you going to help me? And we're gifted to do what we do. I can't explain it all the time. People go, well, how do you hear all these stories and then don't fall apart? God has done that so that I'm able to do it. I can't really explain. I do a lot of self-care. A lot of self-care. That's my mantra. And I picked that up in school that you're going to have to take care of yourself to take care of other people because you can't pour from an empty cup. So I take as many classes as I teach. People see me teaching and doing all that stuff, but they don't see all the classes I'm taking. So and I'm going to give you a copy of my resume if you like, but it's full with all the stuff I've taught and that I take. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else, first of all. But second of all, when I take care of myself, I actually consider myself the product. If I'm not in good health, if I'm not feeling good, if I'm not taking care of me, how in the world can I take care of somebody else? If you come to my office and I'm down, distraught, I'm sad, I'm not smiling, are you going to even want to listen to me? Probably not. So I try to look good, I try to feel good, I try to take care of myself so that there's something, so that I have something to give back to you. But I love taking classes. That's my favorite thing. I just love it. Eat it up. And then even at Belhaven, I teach my undergraduate's computer science. I've taught every class that I didn't take in college. In the undergraduate stuff, I've taught them all. So I've got it filled in. And I love that. That is so cool. Yeah. So that's how I take care of me, but I teach other people how to take care of themselves because it's individualized. You might be like, I'm not into education. I don't want to take a bunch of classes. But then what do we need to do for you to make you feel better? Is it art? Is it talent? That's why we're having a talent show. I actually didn't tell you about a talent show, but we've got a talent show coming up on March 9th, where the idea from it came from people sitting on my couch. I have so much talent sitting on the couch. So I asked, tell me, live or Memorex? And people dance, they sing, they do amazing things. So I'm like, we should do that and take that into the community. So we're doing it as a benefit so that we can do more of what we do in the office into the community. So that's kind of the way I feel like I'm making a difference, is that I'll take anything I do in here and I'll take it out and do it for a group. We went over to St. Elmo recently and did a group for grief. And so we talked about grief and processing your feelings. We did it with 45 people. It was very impactful. They want us to come back. They want us to go into the schools. So we're just passionate about doing that kind of stuff. And I think doing that makes a difference.
It does, because, there are people that are stuck in not knowing where their life's going. and they come in here, sit on the couch, and you've helped them find a reason to keep going. You know,
Absolutely.
like they could have hit a rock bottom, but you found a reason to help people keep going, and that is amazing.
Well, thank you. And that's a good description of what we do. It really is. And people find so much hope. And like they didn't know there was hope. They didn't know there was somebody like them that they could talk to. Or they didn't know that this stuff makes a difference. And most people don't even know what counseling is. I mean, they really just, it's really a mystery. When I worked by myself for 5 years in a smaller office, it was kind of like the best kept secret because I could only see an infinite amount of people, the finite amount of people. So that was all I could do. But now we've expanded. So that's why we advertise a lot more now because we can see, I've got more people who can help see the people. But there's so much. I'm excited about the work, the industry, and it's growing. There's a lot of brain research. We think, well, if I did drugs when I was young, then my brain is fried. There's no hope. Oh, there's hope. Your brain can be regenerated. We didn't know that back in the day. They just thought if something happens to your brain, it gets damaged, it's done. No, it could renew. The Bible says it's renewed. So there's a lot of hope for that. So I get really excited about that. There are things that we can really do that help. And most of them are really simple. Absolutely. So one of my passions and one of the reasons I'm so passionate about this, I want to talk about things like suicide. I want to go in and talk about grief and loss. I want to talk about things we're not talking about, first of all. But I want to do that on a front end because they do call us when the crisis happens. We're the first call. So I want to be that call before somebody takes their life. I want to be the call before, we've had a lot of tragedy in the community. We've had a lot of tragedy at our church. But I want to talk about you and help you heal from that. We don't have to wait until you break down and you have to go in the hospital to deal with it. So I want to be on the front end. So it does drive my passion. The more I see, the more I want to help, the more I get excited about, hey, it's almost like I'm yelling, hey, there's a solution. Hey, there's something we can do about this. So that's kind of why I'm passionate about it because I know there's help. And I've seen it work. That's the cool part. Like it literally works. People come in, they're distraught. We may see people a couple of sessions and they get better. And I know that's a miracle. I give credit where the miracle comes from. But that's amazing to me. I'm like, how could people get better in 2 sessions? And sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes we have people that been here 4 or 5 years. I'm okay with that because people are doing their work. They consider that their self-care. I'm part of the self-care package. And I'm like, I like that. Because you're doing something for you. So it's so, and families, let's talk about families for just a minute. Families getting along, there are a lot of moms and daughters who don't get along or dads and sons. There's a lot of issues like that. But are just that family stuff, family secrets, we get everybody in the room, let's talk about it. Let's figure out why we feel that way. Let's figure out why we're not talking to each other, and for some reason I'm not afraid. They're like, you don't want to bring so-and-so in. I'm like, bring them in. We'll be okay. They'll be fine. Let's talk about it. And it's making a difference too. So I'm passionate about that.
That'll be good.
They'll be all right.
Anything else you want to add?
Well, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the community because we're passionate. We're excited about the talent show that's coming up in March. It's at Chat State, so we're excited about that. Excited about the partnerships in the community. We're partnering with a lot of people. CHI Memorial has been a big supporter. We're partnered with New United, which is our church, St. Elmo. They're just, and I can't even name all the partners. ECI has been a real good partnership. We've done 2 grief workshops in the community, the Urban League, and I'm probably leaving out a lot of people because we partner with a lot of people, but I'm very excited about that, excited about the future partnerships. We're still looking for sponsors, so we're excited about sponsors that might want to come on board and support the work that we do. We're in Hamilton County. We're in almost all the schools, so we actually have counselors that go out to the schools. They're doing great work, and then we realize we're not even paying mileage, so we need some supporters for that to help them with the mileage. So we're just looking for partners to come alongside, helping us do the work that we do because we're making a difference, but funding that work is hard. And so we partner with the community with that as well. And we're loving the relationship we have with Hamilton County right now. It took us a little while to work through that and to get involved, but we can go in if your child is in school and needs counseling, we can meet them at their schools, and that's just been great. And I've got a list of the schools that we've been at, and somebody gave me the whole list. I'm like, that's pretty cool, that we've been in this many schools this year. So Even with a small footprint that we have, we're making a big difference. So we're excited about that.
I've been a therapist professionally. Well, there's unprofessionally and there's professionally. So unprofessionally, maybe 20 years. Professionally speaking, since 2013. So that would be 6 years. I grew up in a loving household, but I saw a lot of dysfunction around me. And I always knew that there was maybe, or there should be something different in the way that families were, communicating and getting along. And so as I got older, I began to see that this tended to be a recurring theme. A lot of dysfunction in families and relationships, and I also have a bit of a helping nature, right? And so I sort of gravitated towards this basically, and I also consider it a calling. I think this is what the Creator put me here to do, and so I considered it as a career. Once I started doing a lot of soul searching and trying to figure out what I needed to do with my life, and several years later, lots of study, and I'm here. So, it's just as important as our physical health, right? And so if we neglect the mental part of who we are as a people and as a community, then we aren't truly healthy. So I think if we get to the point to where we are willing to acknowledge that, we do need help, we do need someone to talk to, and we do need some assistance in sort of navigating life, right? Then we become a better, more healthy people and individual as well. So it's important. It's important. I think as people are beginning to see a lot of, I guess, mental health issues been brought up in social media, in the news, I think more people are becoming aware of the need for mental health, and they're feeling more comfortable in addressing it and seeking out help when they need it. I think a lot of it is just awareness, first and foremost. We do a lot of social outreach. I'm in the community a lot. I do a lot of mentoring programs. And a lot of it is just letting people know what the resource is and what the resources are, and letting them know that we're there to help them. And if they seek counseling, it's not an admonition of weakness. It's about seeking help. And once people realize that resource is out there and you're not going to be judged, then that helps in alleviating that stigma. Well, even in the initial, and I get faced with this a lot of times, even in the initial session when clients ultimately make that first step to come into the office, a lot of what happens is just reassurance, just reaffirming to that client that, listen, you're here because first and foremost, you're wise and you're brave, right? And you're able to acknowledge that you need help, and it's not a thing to be ashamed about, basically, seeking help, right? So that's the first thing we do, is just reassure people that, you've made a good decision. You're here to, we're here to listen to you and to help you and not judge you. And once we reassure clients that is the way it's sort of going to unfold, they become more comfortable. We'll get someone in here and, I'll be working with them, and after a certain amount of time, their family members and their friends notice the difference, right? Some of our biggest advocates in getting the mental health awareness and the importance out there is clients that actually speak to their families. And so their own lives sort of serve as a testimony to the effectiveness, right? And so we get a lot of referrals that way. And that's my particular role here at Sound Living. April had this practice. Basically, she's been doing this for several years, and she saw that there was a need. But men tended to be reluctant, right? The spouses would always say, listen, my husband would need this, or needs to talk to somebody. But they were always kind of reluctant. And so we kind of, luckily our paths crossed at just the right time, right? And it does help a lot of times when, she does get those clients whose spouses might benefit from services, and she tells, the spouse, the man, that, listen, I have a male counselor, who can listen to you. A lot of them are a lot more receptive to that, basically, because socially we're kind of conditioned as men, to not really express our emotions, or not admit that we have something that we have to deal with, right? A problem that we feel comfortable talking about. So having another man, right, that can identify with that man, that can understand, that man, his perspective and his challenges, it helps tremendously. So I tell them, listen, when we get to a point to where, we want to work out and get in better shape, we don't have a problem with, looking at ourselves and critiquing ourselves and say, listen, I need to do some arm work or some leg work, and going to the gym and doing those exercises. Well, your emotions and your psyche is no different, right? So we can look at our bodies, basically, and build our bodies and go to the gym and invest time and effort into getting our bodies healthy. why shouldn't we use that same approach to our mind and our emotions and our psyche, right? And so once I use that analogy also, a lot of men get it. We get it, right? It can be sort of a double-edged sword because we have the misconception a lot of times, specifically as men, that if we aren't just powering through whatever it is that we're dealing with, basically, then we're not being strong. And that's not the case. True strength comes from realizing where you are weak, right? And taking those steps to become stronger in that area, right? And so when we do that, we do become stronger. When we acknowledge the fact that, listen, we need help in this area, right? And we address it and we seek help and we receive the help, that's when we become stronger. You know, let me throw a couple of statistics to you. As men, we commit about 90% of homicides. Men are also 3.5 more times as likely to die from suicide than women, right? That's a lot of displaced anger. That's a lot of misplaced emotion, right? So, you know, once we look at these and it goes on and on. You're talking about high blood pressure and hypertension and stroke. You know, a lot of those ills affect us disproportionately as men. There's something going on, right? Mental health is a key part of that. A lot of it is people or word of mouth, clients that have taken that step, taken that bold step and you know, reached out and received help, right? And benefited from it. And then talk to their boys, talk to their friends and like, listen, man, I got this guy you need to see, right? That's been huge in our community, basically. And that's a ton of the referrals that we get, basically. It's from current clients who testimony, right? Who give their own testimony and say, listen, this has helped me. You could benefit from that same help, right? A huge part of that is the community outreach, just making ourselves visible, right? I'm in several other schools, even though I see a lot of my clients here in the office. I'm in the schools. I'm in Brainerd. I'm in, Brown Middle School and Central and Hickson and East Ridge. And so, you know, when I have clients, right, and they see me in the schools, and they talk to their friends who may see me, basically, you know, they give them their own testimony, right? And so a lot of it is word of mouth. A lot of it is just making yourself visible in the community. We do a ton of work with the churches. We do a lot of mentoring, that sort of thing, just making yourself visible and just letting the community know that, hey, we're here as a resource to you. And then, of course, with the additional testimony of people that have received the services helps tremendously, and it helps break down those barriers. So
Yes. I mean,
we don't see it enough of us. So if this is a sort of a casting call, if you will, basically, you know, anyone who's interested in pursuing this as a field, it's a wonderful field, truly rewarding, and we need more of us. We need more people, more men, right, that are willing to invest and spend time, basically, and make themselves available to men and help men with the issues that we deal with. Well, I have a wonderful support system. I have a wonderful wife who, last September, we've been married for 20 years. I've got 2 beautiful children, so my family is my refuge. And self-care is important, though. You have to be aware, emotionally aware of where you are, what you're feeling, or what you're going through, what your triggers are, right? And so once you're aware of that, you can identify when you're sort of sliding, you know, into an area where you need some attention, and then you're able to give yourself and indulge in that self-care. But it's important. It's important. So I've been seeing for years, basically. Some are sporadic, you know. They get to a point to where, you know, it's smooth sailing. They got things under control. There's a bump in the road, and I may get a phone call saying, hey, I need to check up, right? And think about it. It's no different than you making checkups with your physician, right? You know, having your periodic checkups just to make sure that everything is okay. Same deal with mental health, right? And we're here as therapists and counselors. We're here just to listen. So if you need just someone to talk to, basically, a lot of my clients call me and they, you know, just want to run ideas and thoughts by me, you know, and I appreciate that. That's what I'm here to do. I'm reading this book by a brother by the name of Jason Wilson, and the name of the book is Cry Like a Man. And in the book, he talks about emotional incarceration, how specifically as men, we don't effectively deal with our emotions. We suppress them, right? And it's sort of due to social conditioning. My goal basically is to educate men, right? And teach them that, you know, there's nothing wrong with being in tune with where you are emotionally, right? And to truly be human, is to be aware of where we are emotionally, spiritually, mentally, right? And that's what we do at Sound Living. We make sure that the approach to wellness is holistic. Okay, we deal with it on all levels, basically. So that's kind of where it's at. So,
Okay, now
it's real, and that's the thing. When you're not when you're not able to express and identify and navigate your emotions, in a lot of ways, basically, you're hostage within yourself, right? And then when you're hostage within yourself, you aren't truly capable of having fulfilling relationships with people around you, the people that you love, right? So it affects everybody. And then, of course, the family spreads to the community. So we need to really be aware that, it's not about just soldiering through and ignoring a problem that we're having. Just like if you may have diabetes, it's not going to get any better if you just say to yourself, you know what, I'm just going to ignore it and not treat it, right? Mental health, again, it's real. And once we get to the point where we're comfortable in acknowledging that, and then we seek to address it, right, and we find ourselves in relationships that are, dysfunctional, and we can't relate to others, or, it's just a multitude of issues that come from our inability to really navigate our own emotions and our own feelings and our own thoughts. It's in our community, it's the strength, and we've always been resilient people, right? And so, and we've always had to struggle and fight, for various things, And so the mental health piece, we're really, really trying to get through the stigma and over the stigma that the mental health issue, specifically among African Americans, is something to be considered basically as an Achilles heel, right? It's something that we need to address, and we'll never be a fully functioning, healthy people until we address it.